Gentlemen, welcome to the Be the Man podcast. I'm your host, Greg Denning. Just a quick reminder here, the Be the Man app is out and available. Go download that. It has a free training in there all about leveling up every important aspect of our lives. And it also includes my recommended book list for men. I've been reading books for decades, average about a book a week for over 2 decades. And I've been through a lot of great books, and I recommend the ones that I think are the best, that are must reads, and you dive in there and get that for free inside the app. So go ahead and do that. Also, a quick reminder to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review if you like it. And today, fellas, my guest is an old friend of mine, Steve Cook, who is the founder of Lifeonaire and author of the Lifeonaire book, which go ahead and just order that thing. You're going to love it. We talk about it here in the podcast. Just a great man who had an incredible career as a real estate investor, did things that most of us could dream about in our wildest dreams, and then, really succeeded financially in investments and is still doing that. But then along the way said, you know what, I got to shift things up here and make sure that my family and my faith are getting the type of success that I'm having in business, right? And shift that around. He tells this story. You're going to love this story. And we dive in and talk about that and how we can have a vision and get clarity about what it is we really want with our lives and our lifestyle. Most of us just kind of go to work, chase down a career, do a job, and then try to fit everything in after that. And the family and faith gets leftovers. And how to just flip that around and give family and faith those priorities. And we talk about getting out of debt and restructuring your life and re-engineering your career. He gives a specific number of hours he thinks we should work every week, which I totally agree with. And without the loss of income or success in business, and even if you do it well with an increase, talk about how to get excess cash and what to do with it, how to do your investments, and how to work on efficiency and effectiveness and productivity over just busyness or a set number of hours of work. And we dive into a lot more, and how even taking sabbaticals away from work and all kinds of great stuff. So you're going to love his story, love his great insights. And so let's dive in. Enjoy. All right, brother, man. It is so good to reconnect with you and have you here on the show. We connected, I can't even remember. It was a long time ago in Guatemala. Just so awesome.
That's when we got to meet face to face.
Yeah, right? This is it's so good. So good to connect. But why don't you, Jill, the listeners, just kind of tell them your background, your story, how you ended up like starting Lifeonaire and your whole message. Let's start from the beginning, man.
All right, awesome. Well, I was very, very fortunate and blessed as a real estate investor. And I had come from a background where I had lost everything in the restaurant business and things like that. And just this serial entrepreneur who was always out trying to do new things. And then I decided to pursue flipping houses. And, I came out of the gate there just doing, I was blessed. 105 deals my first 2 years in the business. Was flipping 50 to 60 houses a year ongoing. Wow. After that.
What year was this? Sorry, you gotta jump
started in 1998.
Okay, so okay, yeah.
July of
1998. Man, he's cranking them out.
Yeah, okay. It was my very first deal, July of 1998. But along with that, word was getting around the country. Who is this guy? What's he's doing? People were jumping on planes to fly out to have dinner with me and pick my brain. People were driving in from hours away. They wanted to see what I was doing. And I wanted to help everybody. And so I sat down and I just was helping everybody I could. I would answer their questions. And, I was doing very, very well. And all of a sudden I started feeling overwhelmed, and I couldn't figure out why I was feeling overwhelmed. And I went back and, we had written day planners then, and I was looking at my day planner and I saw that I had had lunch or dinner with 27 people the previous month that wanted to pick my brain. And so I quickly calculated those picking brain sessions are 3 to 4 hours long each. I spent about 100 hours in a restaurant that month. And now I quickly realized, okay, this is why I'm feeling overwhelmed.
No wonder. Exactly.
And I thought, I can't keep on doing this, but I want to help people. And so, what was the solution to that problem? And I eventually just wrote a book teaching people step by step exactly what I was doing with my flipping business. And I thought that I could answer all of their questions in that one book, and I wouldn't have to get together with so many people. And it didn't work out quite that way. The book ended up selling like crazy, which I never had any expectations of that. I started making more money just off of that book completely passively than I ever made in a year before in my life. In fact, I probably was making twice as much off of that book as I was making in a year. But the audience kept growing.
Yeah.
And then the next thing I did was I found myself sitting in front of a room teaching people how to do this. And was really proud because I just poured into people. I wanted to help them to be successful. And I started having a lot of people who were achieving great success in their businesses. But then I started seeing something I didn't like. And along with that success, I started seeing some marriages struggling. I started seeing families becoming dysfunctional. And I really started wrestling with, do I want to keep on teaching people how to build a successful real estate investing business if this is what it's going to lead to?
Yes. If the exchange rate is in other personal areas, it starts to collapse.
Yeah. The cost of that success was, something that the family didn't ask for. They weren't prepared to make those sacrifices.
And can I jump in here to ask,
Sure.
What year did you get married, and then when did you start having children? Where did your family start fitting in this timeline?
All right. So I have had children 2 different phases of my life. I was not a good father with my 2 oldest. I have a 34-year-old and a 24-year-old. And then now I have 3 boys in the home, and they are 16, 14, and 11. My 6th grandchild is on the way.
What?
And, yes.
That's awesome, man.
And
Wow.
so one of the things that I will share, in 1998, when I first started flipping houses, I did not know Jesus as my Lord and Savior. That didn't happen until 2000.
Okay.
And it was in 2000 when I gave my heart to him, and that was when everything radically changed. And
both in the way you approached life and business?
correct. And so it was then, that there were a couple things. My business, I wanted to do it for people, not for the money.
Beautiful.
But then on the life side of things, I realized how much I had been failing as a father up until that time. And I literally went on out, sought out a guy who I admired the way he was as a father with his kids, and asked him to teach me how to be a father.
Perfect.
And I was really, really blessed to have him take me under his wing for years, that he just poured into me and teaching me what it meant to be a man and a father, because I didn't have that example in my life.
Incredible.
And so the combination of all of these things, when I started doing my real estate events, there was one thing that I added into my events that was I would bribe people with breakfast on the last day if they would come on out early to hear my story.
Yes.
And I would share with them my story, and people were coming to an event to learn how to flip houses and going home knowing Jesus. And so there was this incredible thing that was coming out of what we were teaching. But on the other hand, I saw the bad side. I saw divorces happening. I saw families becoming dysfunctional. And that's where the wrestling really came in. There's this good side and there's this bad side. What am I supposed to do with this? And I remember just through lots of prayer, I just felt God say, no, I want you to keep going down this path, but the emphasis needs to be life. And when right around that time, I had 2 men who came to me in the same week. One of them was 19 years old, who had just become a father, and the other one was in his 40s. He had a couple of kids, but both of them came to me and they said, Steve, I want you to teach me how to become a millionaire. And so I asked them both, why do you want to become a millionaire? What's the reason? And both of them said, so I can be a better father and a better husband.
Beautiful.
And I said, guys, you don't need more money to be a better father and a better husband. You just need to do what good fathers and good husbands do. And they both argued with me. They were both argumentative, and they said, no, you don't understand. I said, well, actually I do. I very much understand. But they were pretty dismissive of that when I was trying to talk to them about other things. And so the following week, I was
understandably, right? Because when you get in that mindset, you just think, no, like there's lots of situations here in family life where more money would quote, solve my problems. And there's a part of that is true, but you'd seen a different side of it, not just in your own experience, but with lots of people.
Oh yeah.
And that was the twist on the message.
Yeah. We've helped a lot of people to get a lot of money, and it didn't fix the problems because, yeah, it could have, but they didn't have a plan in place for that. So I was praying about those two men, and just the question that I was contemplating at that moment was, what is it about this word millionaire that just grips the hearts and lives of so many people? And I don't know how many times you may have ever experienced this, but I just felt in that very moment God said, what they really want to be is a lifeonaire. And I said, life of what? Can you spell that? And
exactly.
I was writing
Can
down
I
this
get that
word.
in writing? Do revelations come in writing?
I went and I bought the domain name a few days later, and this was in 2003. And the word Lifeonaire, the Lord just said, what they really want is an abundant life. And that word had been a burden and a blessing to me every day ever since that day.
Wow.
And I think he took me on this roller coaster of, for me to learn what it meant to be a Lifeonaire, and what it really, the man wants to provide. We want to make money, and we feel like, if we're not making enough money for our families, that, we're letting them down.
Yep.
But sometimes we get so wrapped up in that part of it, we forget the other things. And to us, it might seem little, like, look, I'll make a bunch of money, then we'll have plenty of time later. Well, sometimes that later day never comes, or everybody else has moved on, or, the way I say it is, someday might never come. And we put off living until someday. And I have the mindset today that I want to live today. I want to live now. I want to experience the awesomeness with my kids, while they're growing up, not later when they're now doing the same things that I was doing and they're too busy for me. And so
I can hear, because you and I both get to work with a lot of men, and I can hear some of the guys in the audience saying, but how? Like, I've got to provide. If I fail to provide, I won't be a good father. And providing's taking up so much bandwidth. Like, how can I live now? And I mean, this is what you do.
exactly.
Well, how do you kind of fix that conundrum?
So, I got to tell you, Greg, I don't know, and I cannot remember. I just remember when I did the very first Lifeonaire event, the materials that I had put together just sort of came together. And I came to this realization that what people lacked was vision. They didn't have a vision.
Wow.
The vision that they operated with was this distorted American dream.
Yep.
Go on out, make a bunch of money, get the house, the picket fence, the 2 SUVs, have your vacations, and your life will be great. And most people just go down that path and never think about what it is they really want. What they think that the house and the picket fence and everything is going to give them is love, joy, peace, great relationships. And that's not necessarily true. In fact, most people mortgage and sacrifice all of that in order to start living the American dream.
Yep.
They start trading their futures away so that they can have something today. And the sacrifices that they make, and this is the sad part, is as men are doing that, they believe they're doing the right thing. Yep. Because the world around them is telling them that that's what you want. Yep. And so we help men and women, but we help couples and things like that to come up with a vision for their life that's really focused on what they want. They're not allowed to talk about money in that vision. And so it's about developing a vision of what it is you really want your life to look like. And the crazy part is, almost every time when people get that done, the things that they most want don't cost any money.
Exactly.
Or it's very little. And they're starting to recognize that all the things that they were buying and all the debt they were going into to build this lifestyle is what's actually robbing them of the life that they want.
The very thing they want.
Exactly.
Wow. So when they, in your experience, do some of them have a hard time getting to that vision? Because when you start saying, well, tell me what you want, we're so deeply ingrained in, like, well, man, I want a nice boat and a nice car, and so with my family, so I can take my family here and to do this with my family, right? It's very much material minded, not necessarily materialistic, but it's just there's a lot of money behind it all.
Yeah, and I'll just share one quick story with you to help illustrate a point. But I had a student who one of the things that he had in his vision was he wanted to have this big boat. It was a 42-foot Sea Ray or something that he want, and he had it written down. And when I work with somebody, I just go through their vision, and we're just trying to get clarification. So I said, "Why do you want the boat?" And he said, "Are you telling me I can't have it?" I said, "No, I'm just asking you a question. Why do you want it?" And he said, "Just because." And I said, "All right, but let's get to the bottom of it. I mean, you've got this boat sitting here in your vision. You're working really, really hard, sacrificing a lot of time and everything in hopes that you can make enough money so one day you can buy that boat. So let's get to the bottom of it. Why do you want the boat?" And he had to sit there and take some time to really think about it. And he thought, you know what? I was on a boat when I was 19 years old with this guy who we just had this awesome time. It was just an awesome day. And he said, really what I want to do is be the provider of fun. And he said,
Wow.
I want my family, I want my friends to be able to experience that. And that's really what I want from it. And I said, okay. I said, I want to ask you something. If you did buy the boat, first of all, to have that kind of boat, there's a lot of maintenance, there's everything else. There's going to be a lot of ongoing expenses. I said, but how long would it take for you to actually get that boat? He said, probably another 5 to 10 years. I said, so you're willing to wait another 5 to 10 years before you can be the provider of fun? And then when I asked him, I said, how often would you use it? He said, maybe 2 to 3 times a year is about all I'd be able to get it out. So I said, here's the point. I said, it's not the boat that you want, it's the experience.
Yeah.
It is the ability to be able to take your friends out and have a great time. I said, you can go rent a boat this weekend. You already have the resources to do that. You could go rent a boat and invite all your friends and family, and you could go out on that boat and you could have the experience, which is what you really want this weekend, without having the expense or having to put it off until someday.
Exactly.
And it just really opened up his eyes to say, oh, you're right. I'm sitting here working and working. I'm making my family, I'm putting them off and saying, no, we'll get to that. We'll get to that. Someday we'll do that, when I could really experience it right now and today. And this is one of the things that we help people to realize is that, I'm going to go back. I love your story. You and Rachel, what you two did when you just started traveling the world, you didn't wait until you had a gazillion dollars in the bank to go and do it. You said, no, we want to do this. We want to do it now. We want to live. We want our kids to experience this. And too many people would never put that off, and they will never get to have the life experiences that you and your children got to experience because you found a way. It was the experience you wanted. If you wanted to do it in a lap of luxury and wait until someday when you had millions of dollars, maybe in some decades you guys will get to do that trip. But
right, exactly. And the kids would have grown up and gone all the while, like, we'll get there someday. We'll get there someday.
yeah,
It's exactly right.
and you would have been teaching them the same thing that they would have been saying that to their kids.
Yep.
But now the possibilities are there. The possibilities are endless, and they'll want to experience the same thing with their kids. And so, we're going to do this now.
Yeah. Oh, I love it. And man, I loved, so I don't even know if we mentioned it. You wrote a book, a Lifeonaire book. I loved
Yep.
that book. And the story about the boats and the cabins is one of the things that just stood out to me so profoundly. Like, hey, look, well, essentially, like, the exchange, this is what I call the exchange rate. What will it cost you? Because everything costs you, eventually it costs you in time in life.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if you want to buy, I remember you talked about a cabin. If you want a cabin, like, it's going to cost you this much life. And I think in the book, you're just like, just rent a cabin and then rent it in different places. Like, if you want to have the experience, go have it. And it'll be so much cheaper.
Exactly.
And I remember that just standing out to me, like, yeah, just live now, and you could do it for much less than you think.
Mm-hmm. And I don't want to dismiss it. There comes a time to own the boat. There comes a time to own the cabin, but that's not the case for most people who own boats and cabins. Yeah. The majority of people who own boats and cabins are a slave to their material possessions. Yeah. And just to qualify some things, I always say there's nothing wrong with owning nice things, but there's something wrong when nice things own you.
Yes.
And that's what happens as people pursue this lifestyle. And once their material possessions own them, and you talked about the cost and the exchange, um, the problem with that is, and I'm gonna speak for men, usually the man is making the decision on behalf of the rest of the family.
Yeah.
The man says, no, we're going to get this cabin and I'm going to trade away my future. And oh, by the way, as I trade away my future, having to work to pay for that cabin, you don't get a say in it, but we don't get to spend time together because I've got to go work more. And the more of these nice things that I buy that hopefully someday we get to enjoy, the less time you actually have with me.
With me, exactly. And we justify it thinking I'm doing the right thing. I am sacrificing for my family's benefit by being away from them, by pushing so hard, by putting this on. I'm doing it for you. When in reality, there's also a cost to that on the family relationship and time together.
Mhm.
We
were just counseling a couple about a month ago who they were literally on the cusp of divorce, and as they were sitting there talking, those exact words came out of his mouth: "I'm doing this for you. I'm doing this for you." And then that's when I just stepped in and I said, respectfully, I need for you to sit down and listen to her right now. I don't say anything else, but listen to her. And I asked her, I said, what do you want? And then all of a sudden he just sat back because everything he was doing was the exact opposite of what she wanted. And I asked him then, I said, if you were to ask your kids, do they want you to stay home and spend more time with them, or do they want you to go off to work and maybe even be away for 2 weeks at a time or something? What would they say? And he couldn't answer that question. I mean, he knew what the answer was, but it just hit him, smacked him upside the head. The good news is that couple, I think he opened his eyes that day and they appear to be moving in the right direction right now.
That's incredible. I got to share that. Reminded me of a story I want to share because it touched me so profoundly. There was this father, he was just working all the time and traveled a ton for work, just very, very driven to succeed in work. And his little girl just innocently like, why do you have to go so much? Why are you gone so much? He's like, I got to work. And she said, why do you have to work? Well, it's because I got to put food on the table, right? And I got to pay for all this. And she came to him one day when he was leaving. She said to him, Daddy, if stay home, I'll eat less so you can stay home. Right? She just so desperately wanted him to be there that she was willing to eat less because he was going to work to put food on the table, right? Mm-hmm. And you're right. She's like, I wanted the children wanted him there. Our kids want time with us, and we kind of missed the mark on that a little bit.
Yes, you're going to be able to relate to this a whole lot just because of we both spent a good bit of time in Guatemala, and we know what happens there. But we know that many of the people in Guatemala, they go to work today in order to provide for today.
Yep.
They hope to make money today to be able to buy dinner for their family today. Most of the people that you and I connect with and we come across here, we're not working for today. Our family isn't going to miss a meal today if we have a bad day. Our family's not going to miss a meal tomorrow if we have a bad day. Our family's probably not going to miss a meal next month if we have a bad day today. Yep. We're working with people who are working today to provide for food on the table decades from now in many cases. And when I can sit there and share that with people, that it's okay if you don't make a whole lot today. You don't need it. There is enough. But with that driven mentality of always having to get ahead, or maybe even looking at something like our net worth, and it needs to be more at the end of this year than it is next year. And sadly, and I'll just say this, I get it. I've been on all ends of the spectrum. I've had little and I've had much, and I've been all around in there. And for those who have little, it may be hard for them to hear, but the same, if your attitude is that I got to do it, I got to work, and I got to keep working so I can get ahead, you can have more than what you need and you'll still keep on doing that. And you'll always feel like you don't have enough. And that's one of the number one things that I have to coach people with, people who have enough, yet they're still
keep
out there
going.
breaking their back.
Yeah.
They're still out there trying to make more. And
you and I both have friends with millions of dollars in the bank who are still grinding hard.
Yes.
Because they gotta be set up for the future.
Yes. And they don't think that they have enough. Now, fortunately, I help a lot of people to overcome that and to begin to start taking a step back and to live an experienced life. And like, you worked really hard so that one day you can live life. Well, you've already achieved everything you need to. There's nothing you can't do. Let's start doing it.
Exactly.
And we have to, it is sad when we catch somebody late in life. The good news is you can always start living, and it doesn't matter at what point. But even when somebody is 60 or 70 years old, I tell them, you're the one who's responsible for setting the example for your kids to follow. It's not too late for you to start doing that.
Yes.
Help your kids to get out of that trap. Help your kids to live and experience life. And you need to demonstrate by example and start showing them how to do it and to begin to make that difference. And, here in the US, there is that whole American dream. There is that pursuit, there is that drivenness. And so many people have all that they need to experience the things that are most important to them right now. And it's not something that we have to keep on working for. It's not something that we have to put off for 10 years. That's a different goal that's driving us when we put off everything or make sacrifices. In fact, we admire people who make sacrifices in this country to get ahead. But when you look at what they've sacrificed, it breaks my heart when I look at those situations. That I'll just share this because I share this sometimes when I speak. But Steve Jobs, before he passed away, I mean, he knew he didn't have much time, but he wrote his book so that his kids might know who he was from his perspective, because he didn't have a relationship with his kids. And to me, that makes me sad that we celebrate him for all the money he made, but he didn't even have a relationship with his kids. And he had to write a book and try to control the narrative that his kids might know who he was from his perspective rather than hearing from other people who he was. And I think that's a pretty sad state of affairs. To me, that's not worth celebrating.
Yep. And I've read multiple books like that and heard that story many times. So how do you, I know you're not advocating, take a vow of poverty and forget about money, just be with your family, right? Mm-hmm. So, I'm imagining people are listening like, okay, well, how can I still have financial goals? How can I still have abundance? And I think that's a word you would also like, right? And the scarcity versus abundance instead of maybe a specific number or something. But how can people live abundantly and still keep the, what's most important, keep it most important?
Well, first, let me just qualify that there isn't a one size fits all. At Lifeonaire, we try to help each person live and experience their vision, and everyone's unique. And so that makes our coaching a little more challenging from the perspective that each person, we're trying to get them from where they are to where they want to be. And when it's not so easy. Having said that, I'll share what's a common theme for most people, and just know that this isn't necessarily the exact same formula for everybody, but there's certainly something to be taken away from it. Usually, I teach the 4 stages to financial prosperity, and first of all, it's building the foundation, knowing what it is that you want, not just going out there and doing it without a plan. And that having a vision for your life in place is what you begin to build everything around. And so as you build a business, as you pursue a career, whatever it might be, it's building a business that serves the life that you want to live. Most people go build a business in hopes of making money, and then one day they'll figure out life. We start out right from the beginning. If somebody already has a business, we now re-engineer their business to help them live an experienced life. But
Yes.
it starts with life. The second thing is you need to meet your needs. When your back is against the wall and you're constantly fighting, just trying to get by day to day, week to week, it is hard. There's no question about it. And for many people, uh, they still have enough, except they made some choices in life where they've gone deep into debt, or they got toys that they're paying for that are eating away at what could be meeting their needs. And so we actually focus on trying and at least presenting the idea of experiencing prosperity through simplicity, living simply, so that you can actually have a life. The more complicated of a lifestyle that we create, the more expensive it is, and therefore the more money we need to meet our needs. But if we live simply and we don't need much, and avoid going into debt, we have all the time and freedom to live and experience life. And along with that, we can build a business or do other investments instead of sending off thousands of dollars every month to bill collectors for things that are just sitting in our garage. We invest those thousands of dollars into things that make us more money and give us more freedom. And so we focus on stage 3 of the 4 stages to financial prosperity is earning excess cash. And then stage 4 is investing that excess into income producing assets that begin to give us freedom. Most people try to jump to stages 3 or 4 without having the first couple of stages in place. And that's where we see many people struggling. They react to not being happy in life where they're at. So they start going all in, trying to invest into other things that only take more of their time and take more of their, creates more stress and takes more of their resources. And when you focus on starting out with a plan and just simply going, within a year or two, people's lives can be completely turned around and they can begin to experience all kinds of freedom. But this is one of the most important things. When we take people through their vision, we have them fill out a calendar as if they were living the life that they want to live. No work or anything yet. Just if you're getting to do all the things you want to do in life, fill out your calendar, and then how much time does that leave for you to work? Again, this isn't a one size fits all, but most people can only work in the neighborhood of 20 to 25 hours a week and do all the things that they want to do and still have, that time left for work. If you're working 40 or 50, you can't possibly live the life you want to live.
Yep.
Because you're just working too much. So we design a business, design a career around working 20 to 25 hours a week.
Yes.
That makes you enough money
man.
to meet your needs. And then you can now also work and provide and still live an experienced life. And so the combination of those things, we help people to design that. Sometimes people think that when they work less, they're going to make less. We see the exact opposite, because when we have people reevaluate their career, their business, and they only have 20 to 25 hours to produce, they start focusing on what's most profitable, what's most efficient, what's going to generate the most in the shortest period of time. And they end up making sometimes doubling and tripling their income when they cut their hours
in less time
and they start doing less. And so is this the exact opposite of what people believe will happen is what happens. And
so then
but even if it doesn't,
simultaneously increase your abundance, but you're also living. You have more time freedom, more and lifestyle, right? Like that's so cool you explain it like that, because one of the things I'll talk about with people as well is like identify the ideal family lifestyle you want, and then get the business or career to fit that, which is exactly what you're saying.
Exactly. Yeah. Previous to this, for me and just about almost all Americans, is you work, make money, and then you see if there's anything left to experience life.
Yep. And
we flip that right upside down. It's life first, live life, fit business into what's left.
I love it. Do most of the people that are coming to you, do they own their businesses or control their schedules? I know guys that are in a career, they're like, hey, I would love to work less, but I don't get much of a say. How often do you come across that?
without a doubt, the majority, probably 70 to 80% of the people who we work with own their own business, but not all of them. We do, we have about 20% of the people who come to us do have jobs. And we have been very, very successful. And we take our students, we work through this whole process of developing their vision and getting really clear on what they want. And when they're really clear on their vision, then we talk to them about the possibility of, okay, now let's go in and let's have a talk with your employer. And we're going to, now that you're very clear, you're going to say to your employer, hey, listen, I really love my job. I appreciate my job. However, I'm not able to live and experience the life that I want to live. And there's some things that are really important to me that I want to be able to do. And I have a proposal for you. If I could get down to 3 days a week and still produce everything it is that you're asking of me, is that something that you would consider? And the conversation goes different ways, but 9 out of 10 times the employer gives them what they're looking for.
Really?
And here's some people sit there and they ask me, well, why would anybody do that? And anybody who, whether you are an employee or an employer, you'll be able to relate to this. But if I were to walk in, if I have 50 employees and they're all expected to be there for 40 hours, if I walked in on Monday morning and I said, hey, listen, if you have all of your work done for the week by Wednesday afternoon, I will let you take off Thursday and Friday and I'll still pay you, but you have to have 100% of your work done by Wednesday. Every single one of those employees would have all of their work done by Wednesday.
Done. Yeah.
They can be more efficient. They can get more done in less time, but they don't because they're expected to be there 5 days.
To fill a certain amount of time.
Yes, exactly. And because that expectation is on them that they have to be there for 40 hours in order to earn their income, they're not as efficient as they can be. Everyone, when they have a long weekend coming up, gets their work done so that they can take their long weekend. They always do.
Yep.
And we operate with that mentality all the time. Why do I have to work 5 days? I mean, I can do it in 2. So I'm going to knock out all of my work in 2 days, and that opens me up to do whatever else I want to do the rest of the time. I just focus on being as efficient as I can be. So I'll put it this way. I'm very productive for about 3 hours, maybe 4 hours. I'm not good for 8. And I'm just being honest with myself. If somebody expected me to be somewhere for 8, I'll do it and I'll fill the time. But from about 9 to 12 each day for 3 hours, I can knock out so much stuff. And I know then at 12, I'm done. I don't need to do anything else. I can accomplish more than enough from 9 to 12. And I can be available when my kids come home from school. I can be available to sit down with guys who are maybe struggling in their marriage, or I can be available to do other things. So I literally, I'll just tell you, here is the way that I do set up my schedule. On Mondays, I really book nothing. On Mondays, they're pretty much wide open for me, but I only would book something between 10 and 2. I want to be able to make sure I get my kids to school. I have some quiet time. And then the last thing I'll do is at 2, because I want to be off and done when my kids are out of school. And I try to maintain that same 10 to 2 schedule throughout the week. But on Tuesdays, I do coaching. On Wednesdays, I do group coaching. And Thursdays and Fridays, I book nothing. I just make myself available for whatever people might need, or if I'm going to spend a one-on-one day with somebody. But my Thursdays and Fridays are always open. So I never book more than 20 hours a week. And most of the time, that doesn't always get filled. And but I've learned to be efficient and focus only on the things that I need to do in that time. But I leave my mornings open. It leaves my afternoons and evenings open to be there for all my kids' sporting events and whatever it might be. And I just
not squeezing in the kids and giving them any leftovers that might happen to be there after having given your whole self to work.
Exactly.
You scheduled them in as a priority and then fit work in around that.
Exactly.
I can't emphasize this enough. And I have this thing that I created years ago called my philosophy journal. It's I've got it right here with me. This is leather journal, and I just wrote down like my core values. This is the constitution for my life.
Mm-hmm.
And in this, one of the things I wrote in here is like, if you're not spending 3 to 4 hours a day, like you're saying, very efficiently doing your most important work, and it doesn't have to be much more than that, then you're failing to direct your life well.
Mm-hmm.
And if we could emphasize that, if we could block out distractions and give 3 to 4 hours of rock solid work, we could probably do more than most people get done in a week.
Well, you coach a lot of entrepreneurs, so do I. And this is a famous thing that, people who have the gift of entrepreneurship, I call it a curse if they don't know how to use it, but they they say that they have this gift and they want to exploit the gift. They feel like they're wasting it if they're not exploiting it.
I hear that a lot.
For everyone who has that gift, I want you to just consider this, that maybe, just maybe, you were given that gift so you don't have to work so much.
Ooh.
So that you could accomplish in 3 hours what it takes other people 8 hours to do. And if you're working 40, 50, or 60 or more hours a week, you're abusing the gift. That's not using that gift wisely. And you should be able to focus on taking that gift of entrepreneurship and accomplishing much more in a short period of time, and don't tell yourself the lie that because you have the gift, you're supposed to work 8, 10, 12 hours a day. That's a lie.
Amazing. Spot on, brother. I love that. So then what I hear you saying here and want to emphasize is we can do as much or more work in less time by being more efficient, more effective, more productive in those time windows, and then deliberately making space for other priorities.
Exactly.
So circling back, let's circle back to, because one of the first things you did is you met with that guy and said, hey, help me be a better father and husband. What have you found? Let's switch to that. Really showing up as a husband and a father. What have you found are the things that make the biggest difference, that keep the family life where it could and ought to be?
That's really just spending time with one another. And, without time, you can't have a relationship. And, that's one of the biggest factors of any relationship is spending time. I would sit here and tell you, well, first of all, one thing that we have done since the day that I got married is we made a commitment that we're going to be at the dinner table together as a family every night. And so that's like a non-negotiable. We get together for dinner. It is more challenging today with the kids' schedules and as they're getting older, but we still make it a priority to sit down. There's never a time when, if we are all there, we are sitting down at the dinner table, having dinner together as a family, and we're doing devotions at the dinner table and things like that, talking about the day. And so we've sort of fit that in, that this is something that we do. I don't work on Saturdays and Sundays. We are together as a family on Saturdays and Sundays and doing activities. So we sort of just put these things in place we eat every day. We're going to turn that into a time that we get to spend together as a family. It's not just, we have to eat, we all go our separate ways eating, and then try and create some other time that we're going to spend together as a family. We focus on that. I have to tell you that even from my perspective, parenting is hard. Yep. And parenting it's not the easiest thing to do, and there's always going to be challenges with it. But my wife and I are approached all the time, and we're recently approached again and brought in to a focus group at a very large school, lots of parents, lots of families, and they said, well, we've identified the parents who we see who have great relationships with their kids, and we want to ask you, what is it, and what do you see as the challenges moving forward, and things like that. And we're always asked to, from the outside looking in, people see us as we're doing something right, and sort of maybe like the guy who I asked, hey, would you help me? Yep. We have people coming to us and asking us. And so there's something, my kids are good, my kids are healthy, my kids are producing, but that doesn't mean that they're not going to go astray. And I don't want that to make that a measure of somebody's parenting. Sometimes parents do everything as well as they know how to. Kids are going to make choices and they're going to make decisions.
Yep.
But I have a good enough relationship with my kids to where even when they make mistakes, we can sit down and we can talk about that. And some of the challenges that my kids are dealing with today, we are now sitting down regularly and we get together and we talk about it. And I feel bad for kids. They need their parents more than ever
so
today.
desperately, and they don't have them.
No, and the world is tough. They need their parents. They need them badly. And so one of the things that when the school came to us and asked us, they said, "What do you see as the number one thing that we can do to help these kids out?" I said, "Go beyond the kids and reach their parents."
Yep.
And I said, "I would be willing to do something or host a meeting or groups with the parents who get together on a regular basis to help equip their parents
Yes.
so that the kids have the relationships with their parents that they need to have."
Yep. And man, yes. And I've heard you mentioned it specifically 3 or 4 times right there. It's, you got to have a relationship. You've got to invest. Well, like Stephen Covey talked about, right? Making deposits in the emotional or the relationship bank account with your children and build that relationship. And if we can build a great relationship with our kids, that gives us so much impact, so much influence, so much connection and credibility. So if they do miss the mark or they do face some hard things, like, you're there because you have a relationship.
Mhm.
And sadly, well, I'm curious specifically how you handle devices in your home and what counsel you give there, because the device thing for parents and youth is overpowering right now.
It's always a challenge. One of the things that we have done recently that so often, and we did this to start, but so often people want to limit the time on the device. We're going to give you this much, we're going to limit the time. I decided to take a different tack, and I told my kids, you can have as much time on the device as you want, provided everything else is done. And as long as you're getting your quiet time and you're reading and you're getting all of your chores done and all of your homework is done and all these other things are done, then there is no limit to what you can use, how much you want to use the device. You can use the device, but everything else has to get finished. And it's just sort of changing the mindset as the way that they approach it, that they, because when you sit there and you tell them you only get 1 hour, they feel like something's being taken away from them.
Right.
And then they want it more, and there's sort of this more of a craving. We are wrestling with it because I didn't grow up with them. Yep. And if I could have my way, I would just take them all away, throw them away, and we'd never see them again. But it's a very real part of the world that we're living in today. And I am doing my best to even get to know and understand why it's so important. And I'm realizing that for my kids, that is their connection. That is their relationship. My 16-year-old did not want to get his license, and I couldn't figure out why, because I was eager to get my driver's license. And growing up, everybody I knew we couldn't wait till the day we got our driver's license. But what my driver's license represented for me was connection.
Yes.
It allowed me to get on out and be with my friends and to meet with my friends. They don't need that today. That device is how they connect. And so my son, he got his license. Now he's very grateful we made him get it. And I literally was just talking to my 14-year-old this weekend. And I said, "So when it's time for you to drive, what kind of car do you think you want?" And just trying to engage him in conversation. And he said, "I don't think I want my license."
Wow.
I was like, "Oh, I got to go through this
Here
again."
we go again. You're right. It's a totally different world. And you're right. So what's cool is that in our generation, this technology came in about halfway through our lives, and our kids, especially our younger kids, they literally do not know anything different.
Yes.
And that it has a huge impact.
Mm-hmm.
That's going to make a difference in their entire reality. And we've got to learn to work with that. And I'm with you. We do that in our family too. It's like, hey, let's put first things first, for reals. Like, do these things first, then you can have access to those other things. Let's make sure that and we also say technology is a tool, not a toy.
Yeah.
Right. And we're using it for good purposes, and you can use it after you've done the first things first. So Love that, brother. let's shift gears. Before we hit recording here, we were talking. You're about to take a sabbatical,
Yes.
and I want you to tell us about that, and tell us why you're doing it, your thoughts behind it, and how you're setting up to actually be able to step away.
So, this is something that's been on my heart for quite some time. Throughout the years of building a business and having some great experiences with building the business, there's been so many other things going on. I mean, a lot of people would think that, hearing my story, that Lifeonaire is where 100% of my focus has gone to. But during the time that I built Lifeonaire, we had been used by the Lord to start a Christian school in Wisconsin. We got things up and running with a ministry in Guatemala. I've experienced the trials and tribulations of raising kids and dealing with some tough times there. Life happening. We tragic death of a granddaughter. We've had all kinds of things, hurts within the church, and we've made two major moves in the time that I've been doing stuff at Lifeonaire. And in the midst of all of that, there's sometimes just a disconnect, or there's some even hurts and things that you're holding on to, and you begin to start to even maybe lose sight. And I've wanted to just sit down and be quiet and just be with the Lord, and know that I need an extended period of time to just hear from him. What's next? What is the next thing for my life? And it's not that I have expectations that, hey, you're taking me in some completely different direction. I don't believe that to be the case at all. But I also want to enter into it with no expectations and give him free reign to do whatever he wants, or leads me wherever he wants me to go. But I'm really looking forward to that time to just be able to unwind. I feel like the first 30 days is going to be just taking a bunch of stuff and putting it aside, so that I can be free to say, okay, now what? Where are we going, Lord? I'm ready to just take this next phase in my life and run with it. And so how did I get to that point? I told you I wanted to do this for a while, and I honestly put it off out of fear. I thought that if I stepped away from my own business and took that time off, that my business would fall apart, it would crash. And these are just some of the lies that perhaps we tell ourselves, and it might be true. But when I started getting clarity and realized, no, I just need to do this, I want this time, I brought it up to a couple of people, and they said, you know what, we've got this, we'll take care of it. We just had our most successful Lifeonaire event last weekend, and I didn't do it. I wasn't there. I stopped in I spoke for about 20 minutes on the first day, and then I ended up leaving. And most successful event that we've ever had. And I should say that's the only one I visited of the last half dozen that took place. I didn't even visit the others.
Wow.
And so things are running now. But more importantly, there's still the aspects that I do, and I didn't know, how am I going to get my break? And I just expressed to people what my desires and my wishes were, and that I needed this time. And it turned out that everyone was just very supportive of it, and everybody said, how do we make this happen? And you've been leading us, you've been guiding us, we want you to come back even stronger, and we're going to do whatever it is we have to do on our end so that you can take that time off. And it was just such a blessing to recognize that so many people were willing to do that for me.
But that's indicative. I got to emphasize that for a second, because that's indicative of the investments you've made in the relationships you've had. And then when we have the courage to express our deepest desires, when we've invested and we have that relationship, when we've built that kind of life, personally and professionally, people are so willing to help us pursue our dreams and goals and the things that matter to us. That's a principle I teach often. Like, hey, what are you expressing? Do the people around you know in your heart what you desire the most? Or are they even aware of it? That's a beautiful thing, brother.
I'll just share this. There was one guy who I called up. He's not officially a coach for us, but I really admire him, and I just felt that if I was going to have someone step in and coach my students in my absence, that in some cases this guy was probably going to be a really good one for them. And so when I called him up and I said, hey, I was wondering if you would entertain maybe coaching people here for me for a while. And he said, man, he said, you've done so much for me. I would be honored to do that. And so I was like, oh man, this is awesome. This is great. And then I said, well, and here's what we will compensate you. And he said, I didn't know you were going to pay me. He's just like, I was just willing to do it for you. And he said, if I get paid, that's just a bonus. So he's like, don't even worry about what it is. I trust you guys. But I didn't even think. And so that just made
Incredible.
me, when you do express that, hey, I really want this time to just be alone with the Lord, he was just like, I'm all in there to help you.
That's fantastic. So how long would you like to step away?
It's going to be 4 months.
4 months.
Yes.
And still connected with family, but 4 months away from work and really time with the Lord.
Exactly. Yeah, I will be pouring into my family that whole time.
Yeah.
And have no intentions of stepping away from that. And in fact, it's my hope that as I am growing and maybe having the Lord pour into me, that I'm just going to be giving that right back to them
Exactly.
during that time.
Exactly. Because you share, you fill that well, and then the well or a spring becomes this spring to share with the people around us. That's huge. As you were describing like your desire for a break, man, I could relate. And I'm thinking everyone listening is like, they can feel that they want time away. And I think, maybe we can't, well, I was going to say, maybe we can't do 4 months, but maybe we can, maybe we can all fit in. If you work for it and prepare for it, you can take time away. But I think all of us need, I love the concept of microdosing and macrodosing, where microdosing might be daily or weekly. You step away from everything and just get clear and still, connect with God, connect with nature, connect with family, just connect with yourself, just stillness in those little doses. But then you got to do some macro dosing.
Mm-hmm.
At a minimum, take a weekend every month or a week every quarter or something like that. Go big and just break away so that you can create some of that space and open up to other possibilities.
Yeah. And we help create that through our retreats when people come to us. But I'll share this quick story. So many of the people who come to me, their initial thoughts are that they want to retire. And, young people, but I know this about me is I don't want to retire. But what I'm hearing from them when we get down to the heart of it all is they don't like where they're at right now.
Yeah.
They don't like their life. They don't like the fact that they have to work. They just go to the extreme. Like, I just got to figure out how to retire so that I can live life.
I just want to put an end to the pain here.
Exactly. And the reality of the situation is they would be miserable if they did retire. They'll be back to work in no time because they're built and conditioned to work. But what we need to do is learn to be able to take a break. And so I come across people then who say, well, I want to be able to take my summers off. And yet they find that very difficult and they put that off and they put it off. But I tell everyone, I say, what you really want is you just want a break once in a while, and you're never taking that break. And so going to what you were saying, the microdosing and the macrodosing, I recommend that, hey, listen, take a long weekend once a month, once every 6 weeks. Just take a long weekend and get away. Leave on Thursday morning and don't come back till Monday. Because even when somebody does take 2 weeks off, and they're that high-driven person, they're checking in every day, they're doing all this stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
But when they can take off from Thursday and to Monday, most of the time they can go that 4 days and never check in. And come Monday, they come back and they realize, well, everything survived without me. I didn't need to be here. And that little bit of training, they can eventually get to a week off. But if they try to do too much at one time, they never experience what it was that they hoped to experience during that time because they're checking in every moment.
Exactly. And to be able to break. And I think if we can schedule it, because like if it doesn't get scheduled, it's not likely to get done. So schedule a break. Even people listening right now is like, if you're one of those guys that needs a break, go ahead and open up your calendar, put it on the calendar, and then exercise what you're talking about, that discipline and commitment. Like, I'm not checking in.
Yeah.
Do whatever you got to do.
I'm going to give everybody a challenge. One more challenge is that when you pull out your calendar, because I use the exact same example, when we schedule it, we honor our schedule.
Yep.
But if you're lacking somewhere at home, we shouldn't look at our calendars and say, okay, what time do I have left for my wife? what time do I have left for my kids? They should go in there first. And if you feel like you're lacking in that area, look ahead and start putting them on your calendar right now and honor that. And you can't have a deal or something that's potentially coming up at 5 o'clock, and you were supposed to get together with your family for dinner at 5, and then call them and say, sorry, I'm not gonna be able to make dinner tonight. You show up for dinner. Instead, you tell the potential deal, hey, listen, I can't meet with you tonight at 5, but can we meet tomorrow? And make the time, or get them to honor your schedule instead of you honoring their schedule.
Exactly, because you're honoring your family.
Yes.
One of the things Rachel and I've done for years, and this has been just a pivotal foundational piece of our marriage, is we do that very thing. So we schedule an overnighter every 4 to 6 weeks. And then once a quarter, we'll do 2 or 3 nights away, just the two of us. And we have 7 children. So we'll just break away. And then every year we do a 10 to 14 day trip, just the two of us.
Yep.
And we make the arrangements. We figure it out. We'll do whatever we do, because it's that deep investment in us that makes such a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll do little things like that with each of our kids. We do dates with our children. We schedule it in. Say, every Friday, Rachel and I take one of our children on a date. And it's just that one-on-one time. It's incredible. Yeah. And we take them on trips. I take all my kids on trips. Sometimes it'll be 2 of them or 1 of them. And like, we go do something extraordinary together. Like, we have that memory, that experience forever together.
Yes.
Right. It's irreplaceable. And, I could have taken that money and bought a car, a motorcycle, or toy or something, but instead I took my son and we circled Iceland. Right. We have that bond. It's incredible.
We have I had a discussion with one of my kids this weekend, and we were on the topic of sacrifices and the things that we make. And he said, so these people, they've got this and they've got this and they got that. And I said, I could have all of those things too. I could do that. I said, but I choose not to. And here's why. And I said, we get to do a lot of the things that they don't get to do. And, just the trips that we have done and the places that we've been, their kids have never been anywhere. Their kids have never been out of the country. You're 16 years old and you've been in 37 different countries, and, you've got to see things that they'll never get to see. And it's really just a matter of choice. They're just decisions that we make. Exactly. And I'll be careful about how I say this, because I don't want to be offensive to anyone, but my youngest son was in school, and this was when we were still in Wisconsin, and people were calling him the rich kid and said, oh, you're the rich kid, you get to do this and you get to do that. And in fact, the kid who was saying it to him, my son knew that his father, and this is where I don't want to be offensive, but knew that his father drank a lot and smoked a lot. And he said, well, if your dad didn't smoke and drink, and my son was 8 years old when he said this, if he didn't spend all his money on cigarettes and alcohol, you'd be able to do some of those things too. And it was just coming out of the mouth of babes. This kid is mocking him, and you get to do this, you get to do that. And it was really getting frustrating. But his response back was, well, it's the choices that you're making, and it's the choices that your parents are making. You could also live that life. And so I just hope that young boy, that's something that he'll never forget. He'll make different choices, and not that he can live life, but not when you're spending and using your money the wrong way for a lifestyle.
Yes. How much we all have, I think, so many more opportunities and privileges than we take advantage of, simply because of choices. Mm-hmm. And I think the greatest responsibility, in fact, I would even say it's a moral obligation as husbands and fathers, as businessmen, to stop and look at our choices and see what consequences they have attached to them and what are the outcomes. And so often it's like low-hanging fruit to me. Like, there's a few choices you're making right there, like, that can free up time or money or stress or contention. Like, there's a few choices right there. That's low-hanging fruit. That's easy. Just grab those, change a choice, and like you're saying, within a year, it can be a drastically different life.
Yes. We're living. Complete turnaround in a very short period of time. Man. And I would just, put out there that as you're beginning to make those choices, you start out with, what does my family want? And let that be the filter. what do my kids want? And, I want to make them happy. Well, what is it that's going to make them happy? And well, me doing another deal isn't necessarily going to make them happy. I'll do that deal provided it's on my terms, provided that my family doesn't have to pay the price for me to do that other deal. And once you get clear on that, decision making becomes very easy. But
Changes
when
everything.
you've never taken the time to do that, you'll say yes to everything
Yep.
because you think it's going to take you a step ahead. That
I think that's built on just simple and maybe even with the best intentions, just erroneous assumptions
Mhm.
of what we think our wife and our children want. And if we'll humbly and just without expectation or assumption, just ask. I'm right with you. I think that'll redirect some of our choices and decisions.
Mhm.
So powerful. Okay, I'm curious. Do you still have real estate investments?
I do. I'm still active.
Okay.
And so that's one of the things that I'll be praying a lot about is, I I can't complain at all. I mean, we're so blessed in that arena, and I'm doing new construction, and we are God is just blessing us. But that comes with some issues and challenges and problems that I just don't want to deal with, and I get paid very well for dealing with them, but I don't need to, and so I am literally uh, thinking about taking that and putting it aside and just taking care of what we have and not doing that anymore. And it's leaving a lot of money on the table, but it goes back to the things that we've said is why do I keep on doing it if I don't need it? I don't need to bring that stress into my life. And I can just use my resources to help other people, give them a leg up and lift them up
It's
and
incredible.
not have to be a part of it myself.
Yep. And so that's building and selling. Do you also have rentals?
I do.
Okay, you need cash
We
flow
adhere
income.
to our being debt free when it comes to our rental portfolio. So our portfolio in the scheme of things is small. That's all relative to who I'm talking to.
Yeah.
But a lot of the circles I run in right now, I have a small portfolio, but it's a portfolio that provides more than enough. And we've been in challenge. This is just a great conversation from the perspective of what I'm talking about with vision. I could do much more, but when I look at what we have, I tell people, look, I have 7 years left with my youngest in the home. I only have one summer left with my oldest before he's gone, and I got 7 summers with my youngest. And I want to make the most of that time. I don't want to lose out on that time with them. I want to make the most of each and every summer, every day that I have left with them. And then when they're gone, I have all the time in the world to build a business. But this is what's even more important is what we already have in place right now. My family could live a modest lifestyle with just off of our investments. When my kids are gone, I need half of what I need today, or
Yep.
I need 40% of what I need today. And so I tell people we have more than enough for my wife and I after, once the kids are gone. I can't see continuing to build and to keep on putting more stuff into place. That's only going to take time today. It's going to take attention away from the things today when I have already more than enough of what we need later on in life. So
Fantastic.
what would I be doing it for? And you just have to watch out for the traps because people will say, well, you're building a legacy. You're doing it then for your kids. So you can pass something along to them. And my philosophy about that is I just want to pass a good financial education on to my kids because if I do the right thing, then they won't need my money. If I pass along a lot of money and no financial education, I'm just putting money into the hands of a fool and it'll probably destroy their life. And so I'm more focused on educating them. And if I pass something along with an education, then they'll do awesome things with it.
Yep.
But I need to spend that time with them to give them that education, not spend that time doing more deals.
Incredible. I love that. And well, man, so many takeaways, but getting set up where we have uh, income coming in, so it takes care of those needs. And then I know you are thoughtful about what you'll do with all that time, right? Because the money in the investment is going to buy you time, and then when your kids grow up and move on, you'll even have more time. and having a clear purpose and direction for that, which I'm sure part of the sabbatical is going to be a piece of that as well.
Exactly.
That's awesome. Man, I love this, Steve. Any one last thought, counsel, advice, one thing maybe we haven't covered that's just it's on your mind or comes up regularly for men of like how can we really lean in and live like a Lifeonaire?
I want to just encourage everyone to just have the courage to do things different. It isn't easy. When I first started sharing the message, people told me I was crazy. After a few years of doing it, I was getting phone calls from some of those people saying, "Can we sit down and talk about that again?" Um, it is countercultural. It is different, and if you're going to live with what the world is suggesting you do, or if you're going to, pursue the world's definition of success, I promise you, it's going to be at the expense of all the things that are most important to you. And it doesn't take much time. Most people will spend more time planning a weekend vacation or a getaway, or they'll spend more time planning a party than they will planning their life. And we've provided some resources to help people with that. And I tell people read the Lifeonaire book.
Yeah. Agreed. Awesome book.
It gives them a great insight into what the decisions we do as far as life are concerned. My wife and I also put together a Transform Your Marriage Vision Retreat. Just it's a getaway where you can just sit down with your spouse and have conversations that you maybe never had before. How do we want to parent our kids? How do we want to handle our finances? Two people usually, fall in love, get together, but they never talk about those things, and it creates conflict. And our goal is to help people get on the same page. When they're on the same team, you might as well be playing from the same playbook instead of from two different playbooks. And when we can help people with that, it just makes everything better. But take the time to plan your life, not your business, but plan your life, and then make your business decisions to help you live and experience that life.
Perfect. Oh, I love it, brother. So profound. Thanks for doing this for sharing this message, for living this life, for being that example and a light of goodness in the world, man. I've always appreciated all my interactions with you, and you have just such a gentle, loving heart. It just radiates from you, man, and this desire to be a great force for good in the world. I love it, man. How can people connect with you and get more of your messages besides grabbing the book?
I would say just my email address is steve@lifeonaire.com. You can see Lifeonaire right there. And the book you can get at Amazon or any bookstore. I think it's available just about anywhere. They still don't carry it on the shelves in the bookstores. We've sold over 50,000 copies, and it still hasn't made it to the bookstore shelves. But anyway, it's a book that I would say that's the starting point. Perfect. And you either say, "Hey, Lifeonaire's for us," or not. And but it's a great thing. And at the end of the day, Greg, it's the same thing you can help people with. When somebody reads this book and they say, "Man, I want to live this way," that's exactly what you're helping people to do. Yep. And so I'd say read the book. If you say, "I like it, I need to go in this direction," get in touch with Greg, get in touch with me, and we can help you take the next steps.
Yep. Love it. Awesome. Thanks, brother. Appreciate you having here, man.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening, fellas. Hope you got fantastic takeaways like I did having this conversation with Steve again. Go ahead and grab his book. I think you'll love it. Reach out to him, connect with him. You got email, Facebook, or his webpage, and then connect. If coaching is a good fit and you're ready to just dive in, reach out to me. I've got a couple openings, or again, you can always join the Be the Man Masterclass Tribe. We got this community of great men in there with all the tactics and tools and strategies to get our lives balanced out. And if you heard some things in this podcast, like I did, that are reminders like, man, I want to level up. I want to improve that area of my life, that aspect, and get dialed in, because I wholeheartedly believe you and I can create, design, build, and live. It's not just some fairy tale. It's not just some pipe dream. It's a reality that we can design and create that life that's the ideal lifestyle, where we are focusing truly on what matters most to us. And it'll look a little different for each of us, but it's an ideal that we can be striving for and give the attention and focus to our marriage and to our parenting and to service and contribution and faith and time with God and just time to live, actually enjoy life and live, not just merely exist and not just have this delayed living plan, which is just lame, but we can live now. So take action. Hopefully you took some notes here if you could, or if not, jot down some things right now. If you're driving or working out or whatever, just take a minute, jot down some notes and some ideas, things you want to work on, and then take action on at least one of these things and set some parameters, set some goals. Maybe try working fewer hours. Maybe try taking Fridays off or Mondays off, or shifting things around. Sit down with a schedule like we talked about in the show, and just schedule out dates and getaways and trips for your family. Get those things on your calendar so they're more likely to happen, and start designing and crafting and living your life more intentionally, more deliberately. Again, reach out to me or Steve, either one of us, for more tools, tactics, resources, so that you can live your best life as a man. And be sure, if you love this, you like this podcast, or I'm sure you're thinking of people you know who could hear this, share it with friends or family or colleagues who would like this message or need to hear it. And let's share this message so we can all be living at a higher level and being our best self. Thanks for listening, fellas. Be the man.